Hey there, dietetic students and graduates. Today we are going to talk about how to pass the RD exam. I know this is probably a topic that you are very interested in learning all about. I know I was when I was a student and just finished my internship and was ready. I was ready to take that exam right away, but I knew that I wanted to study as much as humanly possible before I did it. Whether you're taking your exam for the first time or second or third time, no shame. We are going to talk about the best study tips possible for you, and hopefully my experience will help you know how to study best for the exam. Side note, if you want to know, I did pass my first time. I listened to so many videos, so many people's advice on how to do it, so that's kind of how I went about it, but I want to condense it all for you in one video so you know somewhat of a direction of where to go as far as studying goes when you're ready to study for the exam.
Hold up.
How deep can we go?
So welcome guys. For those of you who are new, my name is Katie and I am a registered dietitian. I am all about having a positive, judgment-free relationship with food. So if you're interested in more topics like this, then make sure to hit the subscribe button below. I have lots of topics on mindful and intuitive eating, but I love to reach out to my special communities like my fellow dietitians and my Tone It Up girls. So I do have different specialty videos geared towards those topics as well. I'm so happy you came today to watch this video and I really hope it helps. So let's jump straight into the topic. Just as like a table of contents to this video, I am going to share with you first my study materials and how I use them, how I went about studying, and the methods that I use, and what I did on the day of the exam to kind of prep myself. So to start off with, the materials that I used were the Jean Inman Study Prep and the Dietitian Pocket Prep app. Jean Inman's study material is pretty famous in the dietetics world. It is a great study guide, and honestly, if I had to recommend one thing that you'd purchase and you had to say what's the best study material, or if I can only buy one thing, what should I buy? Jean Inman is it. Her study material covers the biggest scope of what you need to know for the exam, and it is very in-depth. So it covers everything that you need to know. I definitely think that I could have passed the exam with just her materials alone. However, I'm glad that I had extra supplemental material because I think it helps me do better on the exam. I think I definitely did better doing both of these study materials, but I'm just saying if you are absolutely only able to get one, then Jean Inman will probably be just fine. So her materials include a big study guide that kind of covers everything that you need to know in the different sections for the exam. So it's just like any old study guide. It's a piece of paper with different sections and notes on what you need to know. It also comes with audio that goes even more in depth than the notes and covers all the things that you need to know within those notes and side notes and different additional details. So I think it's very important that you go through the material with the audio included and just make notes as you go. I chose to listen to them multiple times through because I'm very audio visual, so it helped me study. But I've heard some people only go through it once, only go through it twice. To be perfectly honest, I probably went through all of it maybe 4.5 times. So I'm crazy a little bit, but that's just my method of studying. I'm very, I need to be integrated within the notes and listening in depth to the material to really grasp it all. You don't have to do that. Twice is probably more than enough for most of you out there who are not quite as audio visual as I am, but that's just what I did. Also, when I did my commute, I would listen to her audio files. You'll get MP3s of these, and also you can burn them to a CD if you still have a CD player in your car like I do. But these were useful on long car rides. They definitely get very boring when you're on the road and just listening to her lovely voice. Those of you who have listened to Jean Inman, you know what I'm talking about. It is useful when you just feel a lot of the times when I was studying, I was felt like I had to use my time wisely. So this is good if you have like an hour long commute and you just want to fill it with productivity like I wanted to do, this is a great way to do that. I didn't feel like it stuck with me quite as well when I listened to it just the audio alone in the car, but it still does help. I would like to think that it subliminally was like ingrained in my brain from just listening to it, and that if I could just like listen to it in my sleep, then it would still stick with me, but who knows. So do what you will with the audio and the study guide, but just go through it as much as possible in whatever way is productive to you. One last thing that the study guide does have is 1,000 test questions. It's not test questions that are on the RD exam, but it's example test questions of things that you might see on the exam. I would say that a couple of them were directly from the exam, but not very many, at least not worded the way that they were worded in Gene Inman. So I would say that Gene Inman's test questions were probably harder than the exam test questions, which I guess is not quite a bad thing necessarily. But in case you were hoping to memorize all those test questions from the study guide in order to pass the exam, that's not the case. But it is good practice, because I think one of the most important things about test taking is that you practice similar like questions so you can get in the mindset of doing a multiple choice test. So I am going to be honest, I didn't do all 1,000 questions. I focused on the categories that I had the most trouble in, and I did about probably 500 to 600 of those test questions, and I didn't do them all at once. I did them broken up into about, I think, 80 questions a day when the time got closer to the exam. Sounds like a lot, but you can also break this up into 40 questions a day or 20 questions a day or whatever is reasonable for you. Again, I didn't cover all the questions. I only got about halfway through. The example questions that she provided, the best ones for me were the tube feeding ones, because I felt like they were very good examples of what a question that you might see on the exam would be, and I kind of had trouble in that area, just recalling the mathematical, how to go about a tube feeding and where to start from, what to do with what information, and how to pull it all together. Kind of confusing to me sometimes, so I definitely found that useful, and if I had any of those questions wrong, I would look them up and see what I could do right. The one issue I will say with these exam questions is that it shares with you the correct answer, but it doesn't tell you why it's wrong. For me, that was really, really hard to know how to do better if I didn't know why I got a question wrong and what was the right answer and why it was the right answer. So that is where the Dietitian Pocket Prep app comes into play, because that really, really helped me where the Gene Inman study material fell short. The Dietitian Pocket Prep app is a $20 app, and it has 500 practice questions for the RD exam. You may think, why the hell do I need 500 more questions if I already have 1,000? But I think that this app definitely helped me raise my score on the exam and helps me get prepared for taking an exam similar to the RD exam. By the way, I'm gonna say exam about 100,000 times in this video. Sorry. In the Pocket Prep app, you have the 4 different sections, and you can break it down by sections and study those individually, or you can have it randomized and have like a 20 question quiz with all different categories at random, and I found it extremely helpful. In case you're not aware of the different types of categories that you will get, I will share with you what the Pocket Prep app has and what is going to be on the test. So, principles of dietetics, nutrition care for individuals and groups, management and food and nutrition programs and services, and food service systems. Those are the 4 categories that you will get in the app, and you can kind of see how your progress is in each category. The most important thing about this app is that it shares with you the correct answer and why it is correct, and it shares with you why the other answers are incorrect. I love that because I am a type of person that always needs to know why, and that helps me learn. This was phenomenal. I will say that some of these test questions were also on the exam as well. Same thing with the Gene Inman ones. It wasn't like a ton of these were word for word on the test, but the types of questions that they were, I got very similar questions on the exam, so I felt very prepared through this app to do well on the exam. They also share within the app how to do well on multiple choice tests, so I found that little section very helpful for knowing how to answer a question, even if you're not 100% sure what the answer is. This helped me so much. I can't emphasize it enough. A $20 app may sound like a lot, but it's actually very, very cheap for what you could potentially be getting otherwise. There is an app called Visual Veggies, and it was going to cost over $200 to have that study material, and I had almost pressed pay or whatever the button was to charge that on my card, but I kind of stopped myself and I knew that there was something that had to be cheaper than that. And I'm glad I did, because as an intern or a graduate, we don't have a lot of money and you have to save and scrimp where you can. Am I right? So this is definitely a good alternative. I think Visual Veggies had about the same bank of questions or about the same amount of questions that they offered. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just felt like I didn't want to spend $200 on a bank of test questions. It didn't seem like it was a very good value in my opinion. You can also do a trial of this app if you want to test it out before actually buying it. So what were my methods of studying? My best advice for this is to study the best way that you did in college. If you study via note cards, if you study via, highlighting things, rewriting some key terms, I would just go with what works best for you. I tend to retype things, highlight things, use different colors to spell things out or to write lists. I find that colors and rewriting and retyping really help me personally, but comment below what helps you study and retain information the best. It's important to remember that everyone's brain is different, so what helps me is not necessarily going to help you, but again, colors are key. I got colored note cards, colored pens, colored highlighters, and while I couldn't rewrite every single bit of information that I got on these study guides, I did rewrite key things and retyped the most important points of my study materials in a Word doc, and I printed that out and I highlighted and I colored and I wrote all over it. I just practiced as much as humanly possible, to be perfectly honest. It may be excessive for some, but for those of you who are just willing to put forth whatever effort you can, that's what I did. There's also lots of free material on Quizlet. There are a lot of people that have 200 to 400 flashcards that are already built up for you, so you don't have to recreate anything. You can just use their study decks, and that was really helpful for when I was on break at work and I just had a couple 10-minute moments where I needed to refresh my memory and keep my brain flowing with dietetic knowledge. That was really helpful for me. I didn't use them a ton, but I did use them whenever I had a spare 5 to 10 minutes. One thing I would definitely focus on rewriting if you're going to only rewrite a couple of things is the vitamins, the different types of community settings that a dietitian could be in, and honestly any of the math or things that you're having trouble on. I would focus note cards on just the areas that you're having trouble on, because I find that too many note cards and I end up not really truly retaining the information, and then I just put a rubber band around these and put them in my purse and study whenever I had the time. I was probably not a very pleasant person when I was studying for the exam, and probably a very boring friend, but I just tried to, sneak it in where I could. The things we do for dietetics, I swear. So how long did I prepare and what did I do right before the exam? So I graduated my internship on December 9th of 2017, and then I decided that I was going to give myself, based on what other people had said, about 3 months to study. I had to work a full-time job while I was studying, so I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time to study while I was working 40 hours a week. So I took the exam on March 9th of 2018, and so that was about 3 months of studying there. I will say that I had more than enough time to study, and at the second or third week I was really tired of studying and I felt like I had as much information as humanly possible to take the exam, and any more was just extra information that I was going over and over again. I probably would have been good mid-February to take my exam and would have been perfectly confident, but go based on your gut and what you know is right for you. Some people can take the exam a month later and do perfect. Other people need 2 to 3 months, like me if you have a full-time job, and other people, depending on life events, can take it even further out. So just do what's right for you. You can always you know, retake the exam if you need to. However, you want to try to get it on the first time so you don't have to repay that fee. So just give yourself space and time and know you and know your study habits. On the day of the exam, try to pump yourself up as much as humanly possible. I know it can be extremely hard to do that, and I know that you're probably gonna have a lot of nerves going through your system on the day of, but I assure you that that's not gonna help you on the day of the exam. I am a highly anxious person, and I'm sure a lot of you type A's out there are probably going to relate to that, but I found that the week of the exam I was so nervous, and then the day of the exam I just kind of was like, girlfriend, you better pick it up and shut up and deal with this exam because you don't want to retake this. I just kind of switched gears and said, there is no point in being anxious the day of. Do it. If you need to retake it, you can retake it. And I think just reassuring yourself that it's okay if you retake the exam, not to give you like a free pass or to like slack on the studying part, but if you've done your best and you're heading into the exam, there's no point in being anxious about it. Just try to do your best and know and reassure yourself that you can always retake it. One of the things that I did was just made sure I had something to eat, but that my stomach wasn't too full, so I wasn't having stomach pains or anything like that with being so potentially nervous that day. I made sure that I was hydrated. I had layers of clothing, so if I was uncomfortable in the exam, I could take off my jacket or put it on if I were cold. And on the way there, I made sure I listened to some uplifting, confidence boosting music. I personally listen to hip hop and R&B when I want to have that kind of cocky sense of confidence. Comment below what type of music that you listen to when you want to be like fueled and pumped up. I also gave myself plenty of time to get there so that I wasn't anxious about that, because that was one thing that was really anxiety provoking for me. Is it was at a testing center that I had never been at. I had never been at the location that it was located at, and it was in a different time zone, so I had to make sure that I planned ahead accordingly. I was probably about 45 minutes early just because I am very anxious about that type of things, especially for the RD exam itself. So if you live in a city, or if you feel like it's a new area and you might get lost or something might happen along the way, give yourself as much time as you need to personally prep yourself. But as far as if you're not nervous about that, you know, it didn't take me very much time to get in the building, signed up, and ready to go for the exam. They just kind of had me sign a paper, had me check my bag and put my things away and make sure I didn't have anything on me. So it was pretty simple once I got there, so nothing to worry about there. It's a test. It's anxiety provoking for everybody, I promise, but you will get through it and you'll do great. I really hope that some of these tips helped you, and I am wishing you the best of luck on your exams. Please comment below if you're studying, and comment when you take your exams. I would love to hear all your good news and what advice you have for others who are taking the exam pretty soon. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see future videos on nutrition and different topics like this one, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.